everybody. So I just watched for the third time A Fall from Grace, which is Tyler Perry's new film. It started streaming on Netflix on Friday, January 17th, and I wanted to go ahead and give a review on it. And I'm just kind of giving you fair warning. When a person does a movie review, they will oftentimes spoil it for you. So if you have not watched the movie, my suggestion to you is to turn this off right now. Okay, if you have no interest in watching the movie, keep going. But if you plan on watching the movie and you haven't watched the movie, I suggest you just turn this right off, because I am going to give away the ending. I'm going to give away the plot. Okay. And I'm putting it in the title in case you missed this part, that there are spoilers ahead. So I'm just kind of giving you fair notice. Okay. Now, before we get into this film, this movie produced, directed, and of course written by Tyler Perry, I just want to go on record saying, Tyler, we are tired of these nasty wigs that you keep putting on your actors, including yourself, Tyler. I feel like I've seen this look on you before when I believe you played in A Family That Prays. I think you were Taraji P. Henson's husband, and maybe it wasn't as gray. It didn't have the salt and pepper look, but I feel like I've seen this before on you. So Tyler, I am begging you I know that you're the only writer, but are you the only hairdresser as well? Because we are sick of these old nasty wigs that you keep putting on these men, including yourself. I just had to go ahead and get that off my chest. I've been holding on to that for years now, watching Shamar Moore, the fine ass Shamar Moore, Boris Kojo, all these. And then, of course, Shannon, who is the protagonist, who is a main character in this movie, A Fall from Grace. His hair was so jacked up. I don't even know how Grace she should have known better. She should have known by looking at the hair that something was up. But let me go ahead and get into this plot. So the movie starts with an older woman. She is kind of look like she's on the roof of her house. She's on the ledge, and a cop is trying to talk her off the ledge. She's basically trying to talk her out of killing herself. You can just tell she's desperate. She's at her wit's end. She says, I have nothing. I don't have anything else. She's just desperate at this point, and she falls to her death. I want you to go ahead and put a pin in that, because we're going to revisit that later when we start getting to the end of the movie. Okay. So this young cop, he goes home to his wife, which we eventually find out is a young woman named Jasmine. Now, Jasmine is a public defender, very, very inexperienced, very, very green behind the ears. She doesn't have a lot of experience. So she is assigned a case at work. You would think it's high profile, but she's assigned a case of Grace Waters. Grace Waters is basically, she wants to take a plea deal because she killed her husband, right? It's kind of like a layup for any public defender. Like, oh, this is easy. I don't have to, plead this, anything like that. She wants this. This is what she wants. She's saying she did it. Go ahead and get the sign. That's what her boss is saying. She's like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't have any experience. I don't want this case. And Tyler Perry is playing her boss. He's like, just go down there, get her to sign it. This is easy. Just go. So Jasmine goes on down to the jailhouse, and she, this is for the first time she meets Grace. Grace is just, you can just tell she is just beat up, right? She is just beat down. Physically, mentally, spiritually, you could just tell she is just defeated. She looks defeated. She has really no fight in her, right? So when she meets Jasmine, she's like, how old are you? She's kind of giving her the basic question. How old are you? Where'd you go to school? Just kind of giving like her the side eye, like, you are supposed to work with me. And she's just kind of giving her that look, asking her about her religion. Is she Catholic? All this other stuff. So that's their first initial meeting. Now, when Jasmine starts to kind of look into who Grace is and realizes, wait a minute, this is a woman who was accused of killing her husband, but she is a church-going grandmother that bakes cookies none of this is making sense. So her friends are trying to convince her, like, yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. It seems odd that somebody of this ilk, this stature, someone that doesn't even have a parking ticket would go as far as to murder her husband. And so it's intriguing to her, and she's trying to figure out a little bit more. But Grace is very, very reluctant to open up to her. She's just reluctant. She's not giving her much to go on, right? So eventually we see Jasmine trying to find out a bit more about Grace. She visits Grace's best friend, Sarah. And Sarah tries to give Jasmine a window into Grace's world. Again, reiterating that Grace is just a sweet, wonderful woman, church-going, Christian, love the Lord, bakes cookies, feed the homeless, all that stuff that it's just like, the picture perfect woman, right? And so none of this is really adding up for Jasmine at this point. She's like, this just doesn't make sense why Grace would do something like this. So finally, when she is back with Grace, she finally probes and gets Grace to open up to her about what happened. All right. And this is when we kind of get a bit more information from Grace. And this is where you start to get into kind of like this narration of Grace as she kind of narrates. I would pretty much say the next 10 minutes of the movie, which I think the pacing is just really, really bad. And I'll get into that in a little while. But so Grace meets this guy. Well, before she meets this guy, let me go back. So we learn a little bit about Grace, but not a lot. We learn a little bit that she was married at one point. Her husband went off to screw his secretary, ended up marrying the secretary. So you can kind of see where this is going. Okay. She's kind of got that chip on her shoulder, right? She got a chip on her shoulder, as you can see. And her and Sarah are talking, and Sarah, her best friend, is trying to convince her, you need to get on back out there, girl. Get on back out there and meet somebody. Get back out there and try to live your life. So Sarah convinces Grace to go to an art gallery exhibit, right? And in that art gallery exhibit, she meets a man. All right, that's Mekhi Brooks with the really, really bad hair, the high top fade. That should have been a complete turn off. That should have been like a complete you know what? This man ain't shit. But no. We got to roll with it, right? We got to roll with the narrative. So she meets Shannon, and they're talking, and they're looking at the photography. They're looking at the pictures, and little does she know that this is his exhibit. This exhibit is actually in his honor. So she's impressed by all of that, right? They're flirting. You could tell he's a little younger than she is. They're going back and forth with the flirtation. And eventually we see that he basically woos her. He sweeps her off of her feet. Instantly, he sweeps her off of her feet. He sends her photography, sends her a flower, and she's just wooed by all of it. She is just in a whirlwind romance. They're going to church together, right? They're going to the park together. He's making these imaginary fireflies. He sees the fireflies. They're coming up out of the ground. It's just all kinds of stuff. Next thing you know, they are getting married. They're married. Okay. Now, I would estimate, and I could be being a little bit generous, maybe I'm a little, hyperbolic as well, that entire span of from Grace meeting him to getting married, probably 5 minutes. And I'm being generous. I mean, like I said, there was really no development in this story. It just went from her meeting. They talked in the diner. They got to know each other slightly, just a little bit, right? And they're married. Now, once they get married, of course, they're in that honeymoon phase, but it happens very quickly. Again, the pacing is just really, really quick in the story. Next thing we see, Grace is coming down the stairs at her home, and she overhears his conversation on the phone, him say something along the lines of, "Did you like the fireflies?" Now, it sounds clearly like he's talking to another woman, right? Grace questions him, "Who are you talking to?" And all of a sudden, he just turns dark and sinister. "I don't like to be questioned. One thing you need to know about me is I don't want nobody questioning me. I don't like to be questioned." And she just kind of taken back like, "Oh, ooh, okay then." So the next day, well, it feels like the next day, she's talking to her friend Sarah on the phone like, girl, do you know he tried to check me? Pretty much like that. I'm just paraphrasing. And next thing you know, Grace is being called into the, into the boardroom or whatever, the meeting room, being accused of stealing over $300,000 that she's basically being accused of embezzlement. And very little explanation given, just says that they had their password, they had this, they had that. And if you don't come up with this money, you go into jail. All right. So Grace is just taken aback. She's fired. Her life is just upside down. She goes home to her husband. He tries to explain away why he acted the way he acted the other night and that there was nothing to worry about. There was no other woman. And Grace is sitting there trying to figure out how she got fired, right? Next thing you know, Grace is in, look like the bank's office, and they're saying, hey, you're behind on your mortgage. And she's like, what the hell is going on? What do you mean I'm behind on my mortgage? I paid off my house. Well, no, you took out a second mortgage. Here are the papers. And they're showing her all this paperwork with her signature all over it. And she's like, no, I didn't do this. This is not me. And the woman's like, that ain't my problem. You need to take that up with God, but you owe your mortgage. Okay. So, and I'm going to get into why all of this is just foolishness, but I had to just throw my common sense out the window and continue. I'm just going to continue with the story. Okay. So now Grace is getting suspicious of this high top fade ass dude right here. And she basically says, I know what you're doing. You've been found out. You've been conning me. He pretty much says, yeah, I sure did. I did do that. I got some gambling debts and I sure in the hell did that. All right. You obviously don't know the law. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this. And he just becomes an asshole, like immediate, sinister villain, the kind of villain that Tyler Perry usually has in his movies. Okay. If you've ever watched him, you know that he has the worst of the worst of the worst characteristics come out in his villains, in his movies. And this guy, takes the cake, right? So now he's just being really nasty to Grace. He fucks another woman in her house. He brings another woman in there to sleep with her, insults Grace. And what's crazy about it is when he has sex with the woman, when Grace comes into the bus into the room, he pushes her out the room. They continue to screw. And then when they come down from screwing, she's like, oh, I'm your mom and blah, 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 blah. He's like, that ain't my mama. My mama looked better than that. It's just like, again, the worst of the worst of the worst. But that's classic Tyler Perry, right? And so at this point, Grace is just beside herself. She doesn't know what to do at this point, okay? She's tried to get help from the police. She's tried to get a lawyer. She's tried to get all of this help, and no one is helping her at this point. It is pretty much like there is nothing we can do. Yes, this guy did this is this, but there's nothing we can do. So at this point, desperation sets in. She seems like she's resigned to just have to deal with this man being awful to her. And he attempts to tell her, oh, I did love you, blah, 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 blah. Grace snaps and she proceeds to bash his head in. You see the blood splattering everywhere. She takes the baseball bat and she is just hitting home runs, like bam, 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 right? So she drags his body down the basement. And, what's interesting about this is that she never actually disposed of his body. Now, that's important to remember because there technically is no body. So she has just told this entire story to Jasmine, who is now saying, wait, hold up. There's no body. You didn't do anything with the body. No, I didn't. So now Jasmine is kind of like, okay, some of this stuff isn't adding up and I don't think you should take the deal. All right. Now, remember, Jasmine's boss is pressuring her to make Grace sign this damn plea deal. Right. He's like, we ain't got no money to be fighting no trial. We ain't got no money to be going no trial. Make this woman sign the deal. That's your job. Do it. And Jasmine is like, she doesn't want to. So they decide to take it to trial. Now, the thing about Jasmine is she is inexperienced. So, and it shows when she attempts to argue this case. She is terrible at it. She is terrible at it because, again, she has no experience in actually defending anyone. Not like this. Okay. So She's bumbling everything, the phone records, all this other stuff. She's just not truly prepared to defend Grace. And even up against a prosecutor that I would argue, because again, this is just a movie, but I would argue wasn't even great, right? It almost seems like it was a layup for the prosecution simply based on just the circumstantial evidence of it. Jasmine wasn't even ready for that part. Even when Sarah got up on the stand and the prosecution was obviously questioning her, she's stumbling through it. She's stumbling through the entire thing. And Sarah pretty much says, well, yeah, she did it. She did kill him. She killed him. Right. So that's just kind of like the nail in the coffin for Grace at this point. So both sides rest, but now Jasmine changes her mind and she wants to question Sarah more. But of course, she's being green behind the ears. She doesn't understand. She's already rested. She can't do that. She's going back and forth with the judge. The judge threatens to hold her in contempt, which he actually ended up doing. Okay. While she is held in contempt, she's in the jail cell. They found Grace guilty. Now Grace is found guilty. As they are leading her out, she sees her friend Sarah comforting Grace's son, her son, and she sees this necklace. She recognizes this necklace around Sarah's neck. It's the same necklace that her old ugly ass husband had around his neck. And now she's putting two to two together and realizes, I've just been played. They know each other. She's the one that encouraged me to go to the damn gallery. Her photographer. She's the one that encouraged me. All these things are coming back to her. And now she's like, okay, I need my lawyer, but your lawyer is held in contempt. So now Jasmine is feeling pretty low. Okay. She bumbled this case terribly, right? She bumbled it. And now she's feeling pretty shitty. She's also feeling pretty shitty about the fact that perhaps, Sarah also feels, she's thinking about Sarah as well. So she tells her husband as they're driving down the street, oh, let me out. I'm going to go and check on Sarah because she has to be feeling pretty bad. She runs into the old lady, which I forgot to mention, Cicely Tyson, who lives in Sarah's house. That she actually was in it a little earlier in the movie. The old lady is like, oh, I don't want to go back up in there. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. Jasmine convinces her to go back to the house, in which this is when all this stuff comes to come together, right? So Jasmine takes Cicely Tyson's character back to the house, okay? And that's when she starts, the Cicely Tyson character starts to say, oh, I don't want to be here, that, all this other stuff. And I actually live at this address right here. Now, this address that she mentions happens to be the address that the loan officer who told Grace that she owed all this money on her second mortgage, she said that was where the notary was at. Okay. Prior to that, and I forgot to mention that Grace actually went to that address and saw that it was abandoned. It had a lot of mail there, but it was a boarded up house. Right. So, now Jasmine is like, hold up, this is weird. Then we find out that the photography actually did not belong to Shannon, but it actually belonged to Shane, which is the woman who jumped off the roof of the house at the beginning of the movie. This is the woman who had decided she was going to take her life and in fact took her life. That was her artwork. So now we're seeing that something is not right here, that this man was pretending to be an artist. It wasn't actually his art at all. Now Jasmine is like, okay, what the hell is going on? She hears some noises in the basement. The old Cicely Tyson character is like, oh, they hungry. So she goes down there and sees all these women chained up. That's the plot twist, I suppose, if you want to call it the plot twist of it, is that Sarah has all these older women and these women chained up in her basement, right? Where she's keeping hostage. And not only that, another plot twist. Who comes out of the darkness is Shannon, the man that Grace thought she killed, her husband. She thought she killed him. And at that moment, Jasmine finds out that Sarah and Shannon are mother and son. All right. So they pretty much lock her in the basement. Jasmine's husband comes looking for her. Oh, but before we get to that, he finds out at that moment that Sarah has this long ass rap sheet while he's arresting some guy. So he has handcuffs on the guy. He's like, hey, wait right here while I drive off. You wait here, dumbass. and he goes to Sarah's house where, again, he proceeds to look for his wife. Sarah's like, she ain't here. He rings her phone. He hears his wife's phone. He breaks in. Him and Sarah scuffle. He puts handcuffs on her. I think he looked like he put handcuffs on her. And he's like, stay right here. Don't go. So this is the second person he didn't put handcuffs on and said, stay, don't you move and don't you go anywhere. Sarah got gone at that very moment. Okay. So then he goes downstairs. He tussles. He gets his wife loose. He tussles with Shannon. Jasmine shoots him. And then we find out that Shannon and his mother, Sarah, have been running this scam all over the country. He's wanted in several states for bigamy and conning people out of their money. And Sarah's been running this scam for about 25 years, just running all over the place. All right. Scamming all these elderly women and scamming all these women out of their money. Okay. And now Grace is exonerated. She is exonerated and she is free to go. And, Jasmine is the hero. She has saved the day. Or did she really? Okay. Did she really? And the reason why I say did she really is because she didn't win the case because she was just doing a great job at being a lawyer. She kind of stumbled into information that helped here. So it really wasn't her skill as much as it was just the fact that she stumbled into a discovery of sorts after all of this shit was over. Right? Now, what's interesting at the end is that once Grace is exonerated, now we see at the very end of the movie, Sarah is now showing up to someone else's house. She on the run because she didn't stay right there when the police officer told her to stay right there. Don't you move. She got gone and now she's about to pull this scam on someone else, which I don't know how, because again, the shit was on the news. So how could she possibly go and run this scam somewhere else? But that was pretty much the movie in a nutshell. All right. I give the movie a C minus. And the reason is, okay, because I'm going to kind of stick with a C. Mostly because I have to remember when I watch a Tyler Perry movie, and a lot of people don't necessarily like this opinion, but I'm going to give it because people don't want to be honest about Tyler Perry, is that when you watch a Tyler Perry movie, sometimes you just have to throw common sense out the window and just take it for face value, which I did. And that's why I'm giving it a C and not completely trashing it. Because I went in saying, you know what, you just got to take it for what it is. This is how Tyler Perry works. Tyler Perry is the equivalent of like, you go to McDonald's, you go to Burger King, you go to Taco Bell. I hope you don't go to Taco Bell, but you go to these places for fast food. You just want a quick fill up, right? It's not supposed to be nutritious or anything. You just want to fill up. It fills you up for a moment because it's what you're craving and you get it. That's how I look at Tyler Perry films and how he moves and how he operates. So if you take common sense out of it and you just take it for what it is and how he operates and how he writes, then it's a C for me. It's a C minus. Okay. So thriller, he coined it as a thriller. And I will say it did that. If you want to call it, it did what it was supposed to do. If you want to call it a thriller and coin it and define it as a thriller. Yes, it did that because it had the twist, the plot twist, and it had the turns. A lot of people wouldn't have necessarily guessed that it was Sarah that had set Grace up all along. But then there are people that are saying, you know what, just based on some of the clues that he hit and how predictable Tyler Perry can be, yeah, I knew exactly who was going to be. All right. Now, the reason why I am giving it a C minus is because a lot of the holes that Tyler Perry left. Tyler Perry is known for leaving a lot of holes in his stories. And this one in particular, I feel like maybe the other ones he kind of got away with it, but the pacing for this story was just really, really bad. There was no character development here. I would have liked to have gotten to know Grace just a little bit more. Well, yeah, we knew from the surface that she was a grandmother. We knew that she was married. But you cannot go from being a divorcee to being married to a new man, in my opinion, in 10 minutes. and did not flesh that out. There was just no fleshing out of any character, including the man she married. You mean to tell me that Grace was willing to marry a man that she barely knew? And we really don't know the time frame on this, right? Because it's confusing. The time frame about this is confusing. I couldn't tell if we were looking at Grace from just a matter of months, a matter of weeks or a matter of months. It felt like weeks. But then when you look into it and you realize that just based on the fact that they were in court and Jasmine was saying, well, I just got this case 3 weeks ago, the court records or the phone records. And the judge said, well, this stuff has been out for months. And I'm like, okay, so we're talking a long period of time. It didn't feel right. The pacing was just not good on this movie. All right. Another thing that bothered me, it just bothered me so bad, is how there was nothing Grace could do about this situation with this man taking her identity. I know it's a part. I know why Tyler had to do it, because he is basically leading up to the fact that this woman bashed his head in because she had just became so angry and so desperate at that point, feeling like there was nothing that could be done. But the truth of the matter is, ain't no way in the world that you about to sit here and tell me that I just took out a second mortgage on my house and I ain't signed shit. I ain't signed a goddamn thing. I know I ain't signed shit. And I'm just going to resign to the fact that you're telling me that. And when I find out that I go to the damn address, for the notary that supposedly notarized these papers, and I see that it's an abandoned building, you tell me I'm not going to do anything more about that. I'm not going to fight this shit. You are not going to tell me that. And Grace worked at a bank. So you're not going to tell me that she didn't have enough intelligence in her brain to at least be smarter in that moment. I know it was part of the element. I know it was what Tyler had to do. He had to do it, right? He had to write it like that because he had to make it seemed like she was just at her wit's end, like there was nothing to be done. But that was just stupid to me. That was dumb. That was absolutely dumb to write it like there was nothing that she could possibly do to this man or to get this man out of her life. That was unsettling to me. I was just like, I cannot. You know goddamn well that if I show you that this man is here by himself signing all these documents and I am not here, and I'm telling you that I didn't have anything to do with that, and it's fraud, you're not going to sit here and tell me that this is it. There's nothing I can do, or I can't have this asshole arrested. That just bothered my spirit. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. Now, another thing that bothered me about the movie was, okay, the twist here and the thriller in it is that Shannon wasn't dead, right? That's the twist in it. The twist was Sarah, who was her best friend for 6 years, and Shannon, who was her husband, were mother and son. And they had been scheming people forever and ever and ever. Her and Sarah, best friends. I don't know how you ain't never met nobody that Sarah friends, but whatever. I again, common sense out the window. Here's the thing. The way Grace beat this man's head in, I assumed that an eyeball had to been hanging out of his head. At least a vegetable. He had to be at least a vegetable. You is not going to tell me that the way she bashed his head in like that over and over and over, that this man had a bandage around his head. It looked like he might have just ran into a wall. And which is, again, that's the timing of it, right? I can't understand the timing. You mean to tell me, was this a matter of weeks or months? It's hard to say because of the way it's set up. It's hard to see how this went. It was just the weirdest shit. I'm like, ain't no way I would have thought that I killed him if I had bashed his skull in like that. So naturally, I could see why Grace would think that she killed him. But now you show this fool in the basement with a bandage wrapped around his thing, a gauze wrapped around his head, like he just ran into a wall. Like, come on now. Come on. You was not about to sit here and play me, Tyler. You not. That's the most insane thing, okay? Absolutely insanity. And another thing that that stood out to me when it came to this is the lady that jumped off the ledge at the beginning. Now, this was one of the people that she conned, clearly, right? They conned this woman to the point where she felt like she had nothing else. She was hopeless. She was helpless. She decided to take her life. Where was she jumping from? I mean, I would love, if you guys have watched this movie, tell me, where do you think she was jumping from? Because at first I saw people on Twitter saying, wait, was she at the house? Was she at Sarah's house jumping? Where was she jumping? I can only assume that she couldn't have possibly been at Sarah's house jumping off, even though this is one of the people that they conned and it looked like she was in a hospital gown, which means, what, did she escape? I'm just trying to understand, because let's just kind of entertain this idea that she was indeed got out of Sarah's house. Like, she got away, and because she looked like she had on the hospital gown. Say she was jumping from Sarah's house and the police officer is trying to get her down. Wouldn't you think that he would have went and at least, I don't know, checked the whole house out, checked the whole premises, perhaps find all these women that was locked up? But I don't know. I don't know if you guys peeped that. That was confusing to me. That was just very, very confusing to me. And last but not least, because there's a lot of different things I could talk about, but I'm just going to kind of keep it simple here. I saw people saying things along the lines of, well, I know I'll never trust anybody. This movie made me not want to trust no man, not want to trust no friend. And I'm just thinking, that's really what this movie made you do? Do you honestly think that it makes sense that any friend, so-called friend, is sitting, plotting, waiting 6 years? If they've been friends with you for 6 years, they're like, okay, today is the day that I'm going to sick my son on you to take all your money. I mean, listen, no, this movie did not make me think I can't trust nobody. Now, what this movie did make me realize is that Tyler Perry he knows his audience, and he sticks to that, and he understands it. And like I said, nobody really wants to have an honest conversation about how he does this, but I'm just kind of tired of seeing the same victim in these movies. You know, she's a victim. Once again, Grace is a victim. And not only is she a victim, which she is, right? She was the one that was done wrong, and yet it's her fault. So not only is she a victim of her own desperation to be loved and to have a man, it's her fault for trusting a man she didn't know, for trusting a man that she never even let in her house. We never seen any of that. We never seen any of him come to her house before they were married. We just saw them in the diner. We saw them at church. We saw them with the fireflies. We only saw after the fact that they got married, right? So it's like she is at fault for allowing this man to creep into her life, even though she was the victim of all of this. It was not her fault, yet somehow she's the victim. I mean, she is by default, it's her fault for doing this. It's her absolute fault for falling for this man. All right. It's her fault. So Tyler Perry, once again, has managed to make it her fault, has managed to make it the woman's fault. All right. For being desperate enough and being desperate for love. Like I said, I give it a C. I don't want to bash it completely because I think that Tyler Perry, like I said, he has an audience, and for what it's worth, I think he set out to do what he wanted to do. He set out to do exactly what he set out to do. And in that, if you look at it in that regard, a lot of people would say it was a decent thriller, right? I'm saying that if I throw common sense out the window and take it at face value, it's not completely terrible. It's not completely terrible. It's not great, but it's not completely terrible either. And that's how I'll take it. All right. I'll take it as Tyler being Tyler. Tyler doing some of the predictable things that he does in all of his stuff, where again, he makes the villain really, really bad, right? And he makes the woman really, really stupid for a moment, right? She triumphs in the end. She usually triumphs in the end most of the time. But no matter how she triumphs, she's still at fault for whatever happens. And that's just kind of how Tyler Perry rolls and operates. I love being able to see Felicia Rashad, Cicely Tyson, Crystal Fox. A lot of people didn't think that the acting was great. I think they did what he asked them to do. I mean, the damn thing was shot in 5 days. I don't know how much you can get out of that, okay? And the bloopers are hilarious. If you go on Twitter, you can see all the bloopers and all the mistakes that Tyler made in this. But I didn't want to really focus on that. I wanted to give what I feel like is an honest critique of this movie. Like I said, a C minus. I know there's no such thing. I was a former teacher. I don't say C minus, but I definitely wanted to at least give it an honest critique and say, for what it's worth, if you are looking for a plot twist and you want to, if you're defining it as a thriller, I guess you could definitely say it had its thrilling moments. Predictable, yeah, but is it a thriller? Yeah, I guess you can call it that too. So anyway, if you guys have watched this, I would love to hear your input on it, about everything, including the pacing, which I just think it moved too quickly. And Tyler did not give us any depth, but I don't know why Tyler doesn't think that Black people can handle depth and nuance. We can't. I wish that he would start doing that though. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Go ahead and comment below, and I hope to hear from you guys and let me know what you thought about this movie. And I'll see you guys on the next video. See you later.